Today, we are honored to welcome Dr. Praruj Pant, a proud NCSM alumnus and a recent graduate of the Duke University School of Medicine. Dr. Pant is currently a transitional year resident at Harnett Health, preparing for his anesthesiology residency at Johns Hopkins. His journey reflects a passion for critical care and anesthesiology, with extensive research experience ranging from ocular imaging and ophthalmology to population health studies and perioperative care. His global impact extends to Uganda, where he worked on infection control and medical equipment repair. We're excited to explore how NCSM shaped his path and to learn more about his extraordinary career in medicine and global health. Baruj, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, just to start off, Dr. Pont, I understand that NCSM provides a unique environment for budding scientists and leaders. So, how did your experiences as a residential life assistant at the time and your participation in research projects during high school influence your decision to pursue medicine?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, being an RLA, it's been a long time, but it was a really wonderful experience. So I lived on Fourth East my junior year, and then I moved to First Hunt my senior year. So I was the RLA on First Hunt, and I think it's such a unique opportunity to learn how to build community, communicate with your peers, and try and empathize with everyone around you. Everyone's, getting used to a new environment. They're dealing with very challenging coursework and all their other activities. So it's fun to really be able to try and set the stage in terms of having a good social community when there's so many stressors on the table as well. I think that carries over very well into whatever future you go into. It's always important to be able to look at the bright side. Always important to take out time for things that are important outside of your work. So I would say it's a very valuable skill, regardless of how you might pursue it, be that as an RLA or joining a sports team. I was on the swim team, for example, or finding any other activities outside of school that you really enjoy. In terms of research, I think one of the really special things about NCSM is that it gives you this early exposure to academia. You have a lot of people who come from the Triangle area or other areas like it where they have a lot of parents who or other relatives who might be involved with research, and that's fantastic. But personally, I came from Charlotte and I didn't have much exposure to that before I came to science and math. So that was my first time even knowing that high schoolers could get involved in research. I joined the research and chemistry program back when I was there under Dr. Demira Halpin when she was there. It gives you an understanding of the academic process, of the scientific process, and helps you understand whether that's something you'd even like to pursue once you get to college. And then beyond that, even if you know you like it, then understanding, do you like more the basic science, the wet lab stuff, the bench research? Do you like the clinical research, the statistics? There are so many different ways to get involved that you get a little bit of understanding into what specific niche you might fall into. So both as an RLA and as a researcher, I had some really great experiences back at Science and Math.
It's fantastic, and I'm glad that it sounds like they've shaped your career path wonderfully. Your research contributions also span from ophthalmology to critical care. So, how did your time as a medical student at Duke, working with groups like Duke Kepper and iMind, shape your interest in anesthesiology and critical care?
Yeah, as a lot of people you'll talk to, 10 years out from Science and Math, I've had a pretty winding trajectory up into this point. I went into college after Science and Math thinking I wanted to do biomedical engineering. And then I came into med school after those 4 years of college, having more of an interest in neuroscience. I ended up majoring in neuroscience once I got to college. And then from there, I thought I might want to do neurodegenerative diseases as potentially a neurologist. And that's how I got involved in my research in ophthalmology, where we looked at ocular imaging in Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. I actually didn't match into ophthalmology my first year applying out of med school. And while I still really love ophthalmology, I had a lot of exposure to the ICU in my second research year at the end of med school and really ended up loving critical care. So ended up turning my, adjusting my career a little bit, but still being very involved in clinical research through anesthesiology, more looking at population health research, epidemiological research, and how that impacts critically ill patients. So even though my research interests shifted quite a bit, I think a lot of the skills that I picked up, be that in research during college, which is more basic science focused, research with my iMind team in ophthalmology, I think that all translated really well into what I'm doing now, which is more focused on looking at broad spectrum clinical outcomes in perioperative patients and in ICU patients.
What advice would you give students looking to balance things like academic coursework with impactful research?
It's challenging. It's very challenging. And I think one of the great things of science and math is you start to get a sense of how much time you need to put into each, and you learn how to manage your time a little better as you become busier. I would say sometimes at science and math, I felt even more busy than I was at periods in my college and med school life. So it's a great early time to start learning that distinction. I would always emphasize that grades are going to be the most important. So, if you feel like you're struggling with your grades initially, always remember that those grades are going to be one of the first things that people look at, especially when you're applying for college, applying for med school, if that's an interest to you. So always try and find ways to keep on top of your coursework, and then try and balance your other responsibilities, be that research or whatever else, on top of that. And part of that is communicating very effectively with whoever your mentor is. Let's say that you're working on a project and you've got a deadline coming up in 3 weeks, but you've got an exam in 2 weeks. You should try and communicate with that mentor that, hey, for this next week or so, I really need to bunker down and study for this. But as soon as that's done, I'm going to get you day-to-day updates on how I'm doing on terms of the project, and we'll make sure that that deadline gets achieved as well.
That's wonderful. I understand. I also understand that you worked internationally in Uganda, focusing on infection control and medical equipment repairs. So, what inspired you to take on these global health initiatives, and how did they influence your approach to healthcare delivery?
Yeah, that was a really wonderful experience. So, as I mentioned before, I came into college thinking I was interested in biomedical engineering. That was really my major area of focus as I was coming into college from science and math. So, I had an amazing opportunity to work with these really brilliant local technicians in Uganda who fix medical equipment on site over there. So, we were working on developing a engineering training program where our team at Duke worked with their team at the Malago Hospital in Kampala to focus on fixing medical equipment. And there, that was really the first clinical exposure I had to patients at the bedside, because oftentimes you're repairing that equipment at their bedside. And that was a major transition for me, deciding that instead of pursuing engineering, I wanted to pursue medicine. So I got involved in it because I just thought it was amazing to have that bedside experience. That's not something you often get in the U.S. But what ended up happening is beyond that, I decided I needed to continue investing time in this. So past that summer, this is 2017, when I actually worked there on site, I found ways to get involved in more the medical side of things, helping improve infection control protocols in their neurosurgical ward, looking at what strategies we could use to improve implementation of hand sanitization, improve access to hand sanitization. So I would say that my takeaway from that experience was, even though that my interests shifted in a major way, there was still a way to maintain a commitment to the original intention I had there.
How do you think that NC STEM students interested in global health can get involved in similar impactful projects?
I'll be honest, I don't remember too much from my time there. I think there were a few global health opportunities available when I was in high school at science and math, but frankly, I don't remember them super well. I would say the most important thing you can do in science and math, and the most accessible thing to most people, will be to try and get yourself involved in service opportunities that are more local to you. Durham is a lovely place. It's one of my favorite cities in the world, and there's so much good you can do in that city itself. So find ways to get involved, be that in a science or math related way, or be that getting involved with unhoused people or people suffering disabilities. Whatever way you can find, try and show that commitment early on in your high school career, and you'll be able to translate that out over to opportunities that'll be more available to you once you get to college.
Thank you for that, Purge. You're also preparing for an anesthesiology residency at John Hopkins. Congratulations, by the way,
Thank
with
you.
focus on critical care. So, what excites you most about this next phase of your career?
As I mentioned, I had a pretty winding road to get here, but I am so happy that I ended up where I am now. I love so much about medicine and science in general, but medicine is obviously my focus, and I could have seen myself so happy in so many different specialties. Anesthesia is a beautiful field, and if any of you are interested in medicine, I strongly recommend you consider it. There's so much fascinating pharmacology and physiology that happens in the operating room. And as an anesthesiologist, it's your job to not only understand theoretically how those things work, but in practice, how to manage a patient's vital signs on a second by second basis, having the hands on skills and the knowledge to be able to handle those patients in real time. And it's a very, very rewarding field for that. On top of that, I think for those reasons, anesthesiology translates very well to ICU care, which intensive care over a long term setting is very different from what you see in the OR, but similarly very, very valuable. There are opportunities to help very sick patients recover potentially all their functional ability from before they came into the ICU. And that is such a special thing to be able to see in a patient. So I'm very excited to get a little more skilled in both of those fields, but I think the most thing I'm most excited about is being able to help a patient come into the OR for a major case. Maybe they'll have a difficult process or recovery process after their surgery, and that often happens with major surgeries. And I hope I'll be able to see them actually improve while being in the ICU as well, and to be able to see them from the time they enter a hospital to the time they get out of a hospital. I think that is such a special thing to be able to do in medicine.
That's fantastic, Praruj. Medicine is a demanding field, and your journey has been both rigorous and diverse. So, what challenges have you faced, and how did you overcome them?
I think the it's important to remember that in any field and definitely in medicine, the things you'll probably learn the most from are the things that challenge you the most. And for me, I think there were a lot of things leading up to this point. At science and math itself, even before I'd started college, it's a very rigorous coursework and much more so than anything I'd seen in my time in high school in Charlotte. So I think that was probably one of the earliest things, being able to learn how to handle all that, like Orgo and multivariable calculus and whatever other courses that you're taking that are on a completely different level from what you might have been seeing previously. I think in college, the big thing was trying to understand how to transition from a potential career in engineering to a decision to pursue a career in medicine instead. Getting my grades up so that I could be a decent candidate for that, taking the MCAT, all those things were definitely challenges. In med school, I'd say the major challenge was, not matching. That's if you get to that stage where you're applying for residency, that can be a very challenging thing to deal with. But the reality of the situation is that I feel like I learned a lot from it, and I feel like a more capable clinician because I had to go through that experience and learn how to improve from it. So you'll always experience those challenges, and I strongly encourage anyone to tackle them head on. Take some time to process them if you need them, but keep moving forward, and you'll find a positive way forward.
That's wonderful. Many NCSM students dream of pursuing careers in medicine. So, what advice do you have for them as they navigate their academic and professional journeys?
I would say try and understand the major buckets of things that, for better or worse, oftentimes applying to medical school and applying to residency can sometimes feel like you have to check off boxes on a checklist. I would say try and make that checklist meaningful to you. So you'll see major boxes like grades. Obviously, grades you're going to have to succeed in no matter what you're going into. But then research could be considered one of those check boxes. So find something you're passionate about. Find something that is genuinely intriguing to you and something that you want to learn more about and hopefully contribute to. For me, early on, that ended up being genetic engineering, and slowly that translated over to modulating certain genetic markers in zebrafish to make them glow. And then once I got to med school, that was looking at how we can image the eye to see how certain brain diseases might cause changes in that eye anatomy. And then finally now looking at outcomes in anesthesiology and ICU patients. Other checkboxes people might talk about: service. There are so many, medicine is a job where your entire purpose is to help serve the community you're around. So find ways that you can meaningfully contribute to that even before you can go inside the hospital. Find a group of people or a service effort that you have in your community that really speaks to you. I'll say my favorite example from med school is, even though it didn't have much to do with my field, I helped deliver produce to people who might have a little more challenge actually having access to healthy foods during the COVID pandemic. So we had a group of students from Duke undergrad and Duke med school who would actually drive around and deliver produce to doors. So find something like that if that's meaningful to you, and actually pursue it deeply, and try and understand why it's important and try and demonstrate a degree of leadership in it. So the takeaway message is, even though there are certain things that people tell you you might need to accomplish, find ways to make them your own and take ownership of them so that they actually mean a lot to you when you end up having to talk about them.
That's wonderful, Praruj. And just lastly, to conclude, reflecting on your time at NCSM, what would you say to current students about making the most of their experience there?
NCSM is one of my favorite places, and I'm biased. I went to science and math and then Duke undergrad and then Duke med school. I lived in Durham for 11 years, so I might not be the most neutral party on this, but I absolutely love Durham. I love what the school stands for, bringing together people from so many different parts of North Carolina. My number one recommendation outside of being, academically successful is to make tons of friends. Some of my best friends in life, period, who I still talk to on a weekly basis nowadays, came from my time at NCSSM. My two college roommates came from NCSSM. The people I hang out with, whenever I have time on vacation, oftentimes those are people I knew back at science and math. So always make an effort to try and hang out with your friends as much as you can, even if you're busy. Some of those late night talking sessions, studying, procrastinating on your studying, even though you need to get some stuff done, it's okay because you only have 2 years with some of these people, and those are 2 years you'll never get back to hang out with them in such close proximity ever again. So I would really encourage trying to make the most of that you can. On top of that, make connections with the mentors you meet there. There are some really outstanding professors and teachers who you'll see at science and math, people who really accomplished a lot in their fields and have chosen to now dedicate their time towards teaching the next generation. Talk to them about their experiences. Talk to them about how they got involved in academia or how they got involved in education. You might find that you share a lot of passions with them academically, and they might be able to talk to you about how you can choose to pursue those in the future. So make connections, be that with colleagues or mentors.
Thank you for that, Praruj, and thank you for sharing your experiences and insights today. And we wish you the best of luck during your residency at John Hopkins.
Great. Thank you so much, Atlas. Best of luck.
Take care.